How have the UK's immigration rules evolved, particularly with respect to the Ukraine family scheme? One might ask. To answer that, let's take a step back to when the Ukraine family scheme was first introduced. In the wake of the Russian invasion, the UK government stepped up to provide a safe place for those fleeing the turmoil. The Ukraine family scheme was promptly created as this immediate response, and it was unique in that it had no accommodation checks, no minimum accommodation commitment from the sponsor, and no safeguarding checks. This scheme saw a significant influx of people seeking refuge. To put it into perspective, nearly 230,000 people have either come to the UK or had their existing permission in the UK extended under the Ukraine schemes. The situation evolved, so did the UK's immigration policies. On the 19th of February 2024, the Ukraine family scheme was officially closed. This decision, announced by Tom Pursglove, the Minister of State for Legal Migration and the Border, was driven by several reasons. These range from the changing landscape of immigration policies to the UK government's assessment of the situation in Ukraine. The Ukraine family scheme, which began as an instantaneous response to a crisis, had to adapt to the changing circumstances. Nonetheless, it's crucial to remember that while one door closed, others remained open. We'll delve into the details of these remaining options and the ensuing changes in our next segment. So stay with us as we continue to explore the shift in immigration rules. On February 19, 2024, the Ukraine family scheme was closed. But why? This decision marked a significant shift in the UK's immigration policy, catalysed by an evolving assessment of the situation in Ukraine. The Ukraine family scheme was initially established as a swift response to the Russian aggression, offering a lifeline to Ukrainians seeking safety. With no accommodation checks, no minimum accommodation commitments from sponsors, and no safeguarding checks, it was a unique approach to a pressing crisis. However, the closure of the scheme doesn't signify a complete shut-off. In fact, nearly 230,000 people have either migrated to the UK or extended their existing permissions under the Ukraine schemes. Tom Pursglove, the Minister of State for Legal Migration and the Border, and a Conservative member, played a pivotal role in these changes. According to his statement, the closure is largely attributed to changes in immigration policies and the UK government's assessment of the situation in Ukraine. But, as with any significant decision, there has been criticism. Opposition politicians have voiced their concerns about the potential impact on vulnerable Ukrainians. They argue that the abrupt closure may leave individuals at risk, particularly elderly relatives needing care homes and disabled children requiring specific accommodations. Despite these concerns, the UK government has kept the door open for Ukrainians in other ways. The Separate Homes for Ukraine scheme remains active, offering a beacon of hope for those still seeking refuge. Moreover, the government intends to create a new Ukraine Permission Extension Scheme, providing a new route for Ukrainians to apply for an additional 18 months permission to stay in the UK upon the expiry of their current visa. The closure of the Ukraine family scheme marked a significant turn in the UK's approach to Ukrainian immigration. Despite the closure of the Ukraine family scheme, the Separate Homes for Ukraine scheme remains open. But there have been changes. The UK government, in its bid to streamline immigration policies, intends to create the Ukraine Permission Extension Scheme. This new route provides Ukrainians with the opportunity to extend their stay in the UK for a further 18 months once their current visa expires. What does this mean for new visa applicants? It means the length of new visas issued under the Homes for Ukraine sponsorship scheme has been reduced from 36 months to 18 months. As the Statement of Changes in Immigration Rules explains, this change is deliberately made to align with the period offered to those who opt to extend their permission under the Ukraine Permission Extension Scheme. Now, let's talk about sponsor eligibility. Previously, there were no specific requirements for who could serve as a sponsor. However, to ensure appropriate support for visa holders, the UK government has updated its guidance. Sponsors for new visas now need to be British or Irish citizens or settled in the UK, which means they have the right to live permanently in the UK. These changes also extend to the eligible minors route for unaccompanied children, which falls under the Homes for Ukraine sponsorship scheme. The government has amended the rules for the Ukraine extension scheme to ensure it remains open beyond the current closure date of the 16th of May, 2024, specifically for these children. These changes have resulted in a more regulated and controlled immigration process for Ukrainians. They reflect the UK government's commitment to balance the urgent need for refuge for those fleeing the crisis in Ukraine with the need to maintain a sustainable and orderly immigration system. What does this mean for unaccompanied children and Ukrainian parents with UK-born children, you may ask? Well, let's delve into that. The changes being made to the rules and government guidance will also apply to the eligible minors route for unaccompanied children, a part of the Homes for Ukraine sponsorship scheme. This ensures that the most vulnerable children are not left unprotected. Moreover, the UK government is taking steps to ensure Ukrainian parents who have permission to stay in the UK under the Ukraine schemes can regularise the immigration status of their UK-born children. This means the Ukraine extension scheme will remain open beyond the current closure date of the 16th of May 2024 for these children. It's a complex situation, but the intention is clear: to provide a secure and stable future for those affected by the crisis in Ukraine. While the rules have changed, the UK continues to offer routes for Ukrainians to secure their future in the country. Let's recap what we've discussed about the changes in the UK's immigration rules. Nearly 230,000 individuals have come to the UK or extended their existing permission under the Ukraine schemes. The Ukraine Family Scheme was created in response to the Russian invasion and was closed on the 19th of February 2024. This closure was due to changes in immigration policies and the UK government's assessment of the situation in Ukraine. Meanwhile, the Homes for Ukraine scheme remains open, but with changes in sponsor eligibility. Sponsors now need to be British or Irish citizens or have settled status in the UK. There's also an intention to create a new Ukraine Permission Extension Scheme, which will provide a new route for Ukrainians to extend their stay in the UK. We also discussed the government's move to regularise the immigration status of UK-born children of Ukrainian parents and the changes that will apply to the eligible minors route for unaccompanied children. For more detailed information, you can visit the UK Parliament website under Statement of Changes in Immigration Rules or gov.uk under Regulatory Triage Assessment.